And we are live.
Woohoo!
Yay! Kia ora, everyone. Thanks for dialing into this live, coming direct to you through LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. For those of you who are new to this, we are going to be online for around 30 minutes, diving into the world of social enterprises and impact investment. We have a few questions pre-written for Tan from Ākina and the Impact Investing Network, but we'd love your questions too. Just pop them in as comments and we'll try to answer them at the end. Also add in any comments, hearts, thumbs up, whatever it is you'd like to do. We love feedback from our crowd. I'm Charlotte, Project and Marketing Lead for PledgeMe. Also here from PledgeMe is our co-founder, Anna, who's taking some time out from her new job. Well, actually not really taking time out. She's here today holding Bree. Hi, Anna.
I'm holding my boss. My boss is in my arms, yes.
And PledgeMe has been around for 10 years. We help people fund the things they care about in a more inclusive way than you might expect from a bank or a VC. But enough about us. Let's hear from our fabulous guest, Tan, Senior Consultant Investment at Ākina and Manager of Impact Investing Network. Hey, Tan.
Hey, Charlotte. Hey, Anna. Wonderful to be. Yeah.
Awesome to have
so
you.
Good to have Tan.
So we are going to jump straight into our questions. Tan, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your role at Ākina and the Impact Investing Network?
Yeah, fabulous. That's great. And really wonderful to be here. So ko Tan Huynh aho, no Ākina Impact Investing Network aho, no Rongotai Te Whakanui Tara aho, no Vietnam oku Te Puna. So yeah, really wonderful to be here. It's a little bit wet here in Wellington today, but that won't dampen our spirits so much. But as well as my little mini peppy here, I'm originally from Vietnam as well. For those that have not met me before, I'm just absolutely so happy to be here with Anna. We just hung out a little bit beforehand, just doing the prep. Got to meet little Bree, so that's an addition to the PledgeMe whānau, and then Anna got to meet Bobby as well, so the puppy here. So we've all got our families with us behind us as we do this. So in terms of Ākina, we are Aotearoa's leading impact consultancy. So what that means is that impact is about making actions and working towards a positive change environmentally, socially, and culturally. So what an impact consultancy does is helps individuals and organizations right across startups to corporates to government to create that positive change that we all want to see in the world. So that's on the Ākina side. And then on the Impact Investing Network side, we're a peak body. So what we're trying to do is connect, educate and advocate to grow the impact investing sector in Aotearoa. And so what that means is that there's a little bit of the slice of the pie in terms of impact investing in Aotearoa. We want to see that slice grow. And what that's going to take is for impact-led businesses, social enterprises, same thing, to be able to grow, and both in terms of scaling their businesses, but alongside that, scaling their impact as well. So we can talk a little bit more about that today. So I think that's probably a little bit of a summary to just contextualize where I'm from. And I think in terms of PledgeMe, gosh, I was there for it was close to 4 years, wasn't it, Anna? But yeah. 4 years is always probably like 2x, right? 8 years in a startup, right? So because it's the experiences you have are so much more exponential and rich. So yeah, a little bit about me and Tan.
I was going to say that Tan is an old friend of PledgeMe, both from working with us, but ever since, right? Like I think the connection and the support has always been huge. So really great to have you here sharing your expertise.
Oh no, it's really cool to be here, Anna. And I mean, just you just made me think as well. And I think when you think about the kaupapa of PledgeMe, which is still the same, which is to make funding accessible, right? To help Kiwis fund the things they care about, which is really in the end, that's about how do we make it accessible to others. And when within the context of, say, impact, it's like, well, how that's the positive change, because if we can get funding to those that may not be able to get it, then that is a way that we can create the positive change, because it's the communities and the people behind them that know what is required to be able to make that positive change. And if we can get the funding into the hands of individuals, the founders and the entrepreneurs that are running these social enterprises, then that's the way that we can really accelerate the positive change. So that's yeah, it's in many ways it's a lot of things change, but in many respects they stay the same. It's just that we just need to do more of it.
Totally. And that's the beautiful thing, I think, is that since PledgeMe launched, over 10 years ago, there are more and more options for social enterprises. And I think that's why it's so cool, Tan, to hear from you, like, what is happening these days and how can these impact entrepreneurs fund the things they care about, not just through their crowds. Yeah. So sorry, Charlotte, you've taken over. What are the questions?
There's so much to say. So actually, I want to come back to a really general question for you both. Can you define impact investment before we even get started?
Tan?
Should you go with me? Sure. I'll give you the technical term and why it matters, and then we can actually explain what that means from a real world perspective as well. And Anna will certainly have her perspective on that. So impact investment is to create positive social and cultural and environmental change whilst making a financial return. So let me just unpack that a little bit. So the really critical words here is positive. So everything that we do creates an impact on the world, but it could be negative, right? So, and impact is about creating positive change. So that means, for example, reducing emissions, right? Or increasing the housing affordability, or reducing the amount of single-use plastics. So that is positive social or environmental change. The other really critical thing is that investment is about making financial returns. And that's really, really important because it's the same principles for a social enterprise or an impact-led business, is that those two things shouldn't be separated. You shouldn't, it's that you can have a really good, sustainable, financially sound business, but as well as do a really positive, have a positive impact on the world as well. Those two things need to be working alongside each other, and that's what we're actually starting to see now. So if we kind of zoom up a little bit here and say, okay, the impact investment market, the last time there was some measurement done on it, it was about $3 billion, and now it's about $8 billion. And the reasons why is really the most interesting, is that because of the fact that investors now are starting to see the financial returns that can be made from impact-led businesses, and the fact that there is other factors now that are moving towards what we call an impact economy. So, for example, and PledgeMe would have seen this as well, is that people now understand that there is a real problem for us to solve, right? And I've described some of that, so that there is the challenge that is ahead of us that creates these opportunities for impact-led businesses to actually solve these problems, build businesses, as well as creating that impact. The other part of it is there's a greater need now for transparency, and that's all across the products that we buy, the things that the companies that we buy from, the companies that we invest in, right? So that's a huge part of it as well. The regulators and government are now wanting more transparency in terms of the things that they want to buy into in terms of social procurement. So you've got all these factors, and then you think about the technological and the societal changing societal values, that we want greater transparency. We want to be able to understand who we're buying from, who we're investing in. All these factors are creating this what I've described as an impact economy, which is that people are wanting to invest and buy in organizations that are able to show exactly what they're doing, where they're buying from, who is part in their supply chain, who their customers are, and all those kind of things as well. So in the end, that really what that creates, if then you zoom down to the impact or social enterprise level, is like I'm in this environment where I can actually put my purpose alongside profit that is going to be good for people and planet. So that's what we're, and there's that is not an aspiration. That those are the actual things that are happening right now, and it's the organizations such as Ākina that is trying to improve capability through essentially coaching organizations and individuals to be able to model their impact and be transparent about how they're going to create change in the world, and then be able to measure it, because measurement is a way that you can answer the transparency. So that there's that thing called greenwashing, and now is the new derivative of that is the impact washing. Is that how do we prove it? If you're saying what you're going to do these kind of things, prove it. So the measurement is a way that you can actually do that. So I think that's the part of it as well. But I'm saying all the good stuff about that, but the thing is that 8 billion is just a fraction. If you think of that as a big pizza, right? That is just a tiny, tiny slice, the 8 billion. It's you're talking about 250 billion plus that's circulating around in terms of the capital that's circulating around Aotearoa, just Aotearoa, right? KiwiSaver, as an example, it's about 90 or so billion right now. So though the impact investing growth is there, it's that the total size, we still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And what's going to be the way that we're going to do that? So on the investor side, investors say, hey, we need more investable companies, social enterprises. So what do we need then? More social enterprises that can be investable. Yeah. And we need organizations like PledgeMe to be able to fund them, to be able to be ready for investment. Yeah. You're going to ask something, Anna?
I was going to ask a quick question. So that the current $8 billion sort of impact investment market, what is that mainly? Like where is most of that money going? Is there a certain focus to it right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, because if you even break that up more, right, there's a large part of it is that Brie?
That's Brie, sorry. She's got opinions on this.
Oh, that's great. It's never too early to start. I think it's a great question, right? Because in the end, if you break that up, I think the best way to look at it is that where is the greatest, where does it need to come into most to be able to create, to grow that market, and to also be able to solve some of the real world problems that Aotearoa is facing. So what you're starting to see in the last few years is that even, let's say 10 years ago, there wasn't a thing called an impact fund. So there was like a venture capital fund, right? And there's a lot of them, and that was developing, but then there wasn't much impact funds. So now what you're starting to see is a whole range of impact funds that are out there, like funds that are specifically investing in social enterprise and impact-led businesses. So that is another area where we want to start to see that market begin to grow more, that segment. And you're starting to see that, in that the number one, the funds that are they started those first ones, like the Impact Enterprise Fund, Soul Capital, Purpose Capital, they are starting to now do two things: raise more rounds, which means that they're really just pooling together in money from different investors, and then they're allocating that into other into impact businesses. The second thing that's happening is that when they're going to raise, the size of their funds are starting to increase now. So that's a really good sign for impact businesses or social enterprises. So before, we're the Impact Enterprise Fund, which Ākina is a partner of, we raised $9 million, and we were one of the first ones in Aotearoa. Now, what we're starting to see is the other impact funds are out there are looking to raise at least double that. So that's a really positive sign. So yeah, it's a little bit of a little bit more slicing to of that, which is in terms of your question, Anna. But I think that's one of the other areas. And then where I say like a PledgeMe is that then they PledgeMe either invest alongside those impact funds, or they will provide the earlier funding prior to that VC. So I mean, narrative moves is a really good example, right? It's and sometimes it's quite often is that a narrative news can go for a PledgeMe, get their crowd behind them, get investors in behind them, and then they can choose to or invest alongside or get an impact fund to invest in them as well. So yeah, I think this is it's a increasing maturity of the impact investment market. And I think that's just a really positive thing because, as I said, the definition sometimes, and I don't typically get hung up on the definition, but it actually really matters in this context because it means that organizations are making a financial return, but they can also achieve their purpose, which actually is typically the primary reason why social enterprises are started, right? Yeah, PledgeMe included.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because one of the things you said in there was like people not realizing that you need to have a sustainable business that's making profit as well as doing good, and it's something that I know traditional investors, right when we were starting, were like, oh, you can't do that, you can't do good and do well, like you have to have two pockets. There's the philanthropy pocket and there's the investment pocket, and like they don't mix. And so I love hearing that, you know, that is changing and we're seeing growth because, you know, we've seen that it works. You know, Brienne with the teak is one example where, you know, there were lots of people that were like, oh, this is never going to be a thing, but it's been one of the best returns for some of our investors in New Zealand. So yeah. Charlotte, what other questions did we have?
So the next question was that PledgeMe was working in the impact investment space before it was actually called that, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Do you want to start, Anna?
Yeah.
I feel like you should start that one.
Yeah, I think
Anna and
Brie, yeah, she's got thoughts. Yeah, I mean, when we started, the goal was really to help Kiwis fund the things they care about, and that progressed from being sort of rewards-based crowdfunding for artists and musicians to companies. But as I said, you know, when we moved into that space with companies raising investment, there was definitely a bit of pushback on, you know, should people be raising from their crowds, and can you do good and do well at the same time? And that was something that we were pretty clear from the start. Hey, Tan, like, we believe you could do both, and we've seen it has worked, but we didn't call it impact investment. I don't even think we called it social enterprise at the start, but it's progressed since then. And the thing that I love is that there are more options now. And that's something I want to hear more about from Tan, is like, what are the ways that people are funding these days? Because I think it's really important that we do show all the opportunities for our social entrepreneurs, because it's really hard. And if we can make it easier, you know, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah. And in a way, the terminology, I know that I said that definition does matter, particularly in a place, in a world like investment. But in the end, what it actually boils down is, what difference does it really make? And in the end, that's what it boils down to, right? And so if before a fancy a term like impact investment seems a little bit weird for me as the impact investing manager saying this, but it's that PledgeMe, its purpose was about funding, providing accessibility of funding to founders and entrepreneurs and community groups, right? That's really, and that's the difference. So in a way, that's the impact investment hasn't changed from too much from that respect. It's just what we're wanting to do is try to build an economy and the businesses and investors around something, because that's how we're really going to scale this. So in terms of your question, and I think I've already mentioned about that, the fact that there's impact funds now, like whereas it wasn't before. That's a really positive thing, right? To be able to, because that really just shows that there is the market and the appetite is moving towards that. Money's actually moving there towards this. So that's a really positive sign for an impact business. The other thing, part of it as well, is that you can actually social enterprises can, their government now are starting to put funding in place. You've got the Ministry of the Environment, for example. They've got this thing called the Waste Minimisation Fund. So if you're looking to, if waste and environment is your impact focus for your business, then that's something that you can help with you in terms of getting started. The Ministry of Primary Industries has their SFFF, I think it's Sustainable Food Fibers. Can't remember the other part of the F, but
forestry? Nah.
Forestry, food, fibers. Yeah, anyway. I'm sure someone can Google that. Yeah, the point is that there's government does have these that really is showing that there is a commitment that needs to be made from a government perspective on these impact areas, such as waste and the food and agriculture. So that's the other part of it. Organizations like Ākina now have been running this program called the Impact Investment Readiness Program. So that is, in simple terms, if you're an impact-led business and you're looking at probably raising the first time, then you need capability. You need professionals around you, such as lawyers and people that can value your business and people that can get your documentation right so that you can actually be ready to talk to investors. So those programs such as that are available as well. So in the end, what that does is says, get me started with funding, get me started with help for me to be able to get ready. Because when I entered this as a social enterprise, I can't know everything. I've got probably a skill set in this one certain area, and it could be capital raising, but it's most likely not, right? It's normally about the purpose. It's so that people have expertise on the product or the domain side of things, but it's typically not the capital raising side of things. So that's a way that people can actually tap into these what is normally non-equity as well, which is really positive from a business perspective and a founder perspective. So that there's those sort of things. And what we're also starting to see as well is that the impact investors are also the philanthropic trusts and foundations as well. So those organizations, such as the Tyndall Foundation and Foundation Northwell Energy Trust, they're the ones that have been funding programs such as the one in Ākina.
That's awesome, because I remember back when we started, we pitched some of those people, and they're like, there's no way we'd ever fund a business. Like, we'll only ever fund charities. So it's awesome to hear there's been that progression, because there was that sort of weird mindset that if you're a business, you're going to maximize profit and it's going to be bad. We'll only do good through charity. So yeah, great to hear.
It is, and it's really, and it is really great to hear, and it's really a sign that this economy that we're calling the impact economy is a sign that, when I started off that definition, gosh, how many applications has it been? Is like, look, people are starting to understand now you can actually do real good for the world, as well as making that financial return as well. So in fact, those two need to be there to be able to. They're really complementary. They're the perfect duels. Yeah.
I just want to quickly shout out to Bernard, who commented on my post on LinkedIn from Capital Preferences. So they've created a technology that helps individuals sort of assess how they're investing their money, and help investment providers give better ideas around how to align those values. So it's great to hear from him as well that this is happening at every level, right? Right from individual investors thinking about how they invest through to, investment funds and companies.
Yeah. And it's what I said at the start, right? I mean, when you talk about like what does impact mean, is like, everyone has a choice to make. You have that choice whether it's going to the action that you take is going to be have a positive impact on the world, people and planet, or not. So PledgeMe, for a lot of the organizations that have gone to fund through the platform, is that they're trying to do good for the world. Those pledges, investors, are taking an action. They're, in a way, that's their positive impact, like they're at an individual level. So, and they're allowing that to aggregate together and providing that to an impact-led business to be able to create their impact. So there's this lovely circular way about it, right? The contribution of a collection of individuals that allows an organization to be able to scale their impact as well. Yeah.
Nice. And it looks like, Tan, you've said that already, partly that impact investing is becoming more mainstream in New Zealand. Can you speak to that a little?
Yeah, I would say that we would classify it, and we use the reference point of global markets, the UK, Europe, US, that we would classify the market here as emerging, that not quite we wouldn't call it a mature market. But it is mainstreaming, and the reason why that's starting to happen is what I said before, Charlotte, about that there's more impact funds now. That impact investing is a really creditable way of investing now, because of the fact that you can achieve financial returns, because that's normally what investors are looked at. But now what we're doing is starting to educate the market and say you can do that, but then also achieve reduction in emissions and waste minimization, more affordable housing. So isn't that great? The fact that you can do all those wonderful things to really meet the challenges that we all know are there, but also in terms of the financial return. And that's what we mean by maturity, is that the markets where impact investing normally was not known in or aware of, or people, more importantly, taking action and investing, you're starting to see that more now. That's the impact funds. There's more social housing now. The investors are like KiwiSavers are investing in social housing, as an example. Those are the signs that is more mainstreaming. That market. The critical part about it is that as it mainstreams, that we have to hold on to the integrity of the impact side of things, which is that if you say that you are going to benefit these people or the environment as a stakeholder, then what are you actually doing? How are you actually measuring that and showing that? That's the critical part of it as well, is that thing we have to, while the market grows and matures and the mainstreams, which it is, we need to be able to, organizations still have to be able to demonstrate and measure and provide the evidence, so that the people that are buying from them or investing in them can actually be sure that what they say, what's on the label is actually in the tin. Hey, Brie.
She's real interested in this conversation. Hey, I've got a question which is completely not on the list. Oh, and I've lost you. I found you again. She hit the screen. What stage should a company be thinking about these impact funds? Like, should they be at a certain level in revenue or in their journey before they go? Because I know that the funds are probably being hit by a lot of people applying as well. When does it make sense for them to go to a fund?
Yeah, it's not a straight answer, and this is in a way the good side of it. So if organizations wanted to go on there, this is a little bit of a plug, but we're in a way we're the Impact Investing Network as a charitable trust ourselves. We're not we're there for the benefit of the industry. So we've developed an ecosystem in terms of all the impact funds. And when you go on there, the point I'm making is that there is different requirements for each of those impact funds. It could be based on the impact area. So the Climate VC Fund, as an example, is only focused on climate, whereas an organization like Soul Capital, they'll be focused on different impact areas. And in terms of the financial returns that they're wanting, it's going to be different from a capital, like a climate VC fund, to a Soul Capital, to a Purpose Capital. So that's the first point to make, is that the market is developing in a way, the maturity that, you can have different types of requirements. But all that aside, normally it's that what they'll be looking for across the board is that they'll be looking for some a scalable model of some sort to be able to be impacted in, to be able to invest in by an impact fund. That's what they're primarily looking for. And then that you have to have the impact alongside that as well. They will not, if you've got that scalable part of it, but you don't have the impact, then there's other VC funds for you to go on, just not this, the impact fund side of things. So I think that, and then there's things that are underneath that scalable side of things as well. But I think those are the two really the themes. I mean, from my experiences, with being involved with the impact funds, and then also from a PledgeMe side of things, is that there would definitely organisations that would be for both. In terms of looking at the crowdfunding campaigns, the equity crowdfundings that we did, Anna, and then some of the impact ones as well. Like the companies, like I would say, like Ākina, I was just on a panel with Brian just a little while ago. They would be able to get investment, I would say, from both, because they've got this really the market, this big market size, for example, that speaks to that scalable side of things, and then the impact side. And then the text case was about removing all the plastics, right, from like cosmetics industry. So and then there's other examples of that as well that PledgeMe has had. So yeah, under those two buckets.
I think one thing to note though is sometimes people try and pitch for investment too soon, where they haven't really validated what they're doing by getting people paying for it yet, or haven't progressed it to a point where they have that sort of early version of their product or technology. And that's something to think about, is you need to have progressed it to a point where people are seeing you've invested your time and your money into it to get to that proof point. I think often people get frustrated that they're not raising or getting grants or things, but they haven't always gotten to the point where investors can see they've done that early work. That's
right.
It'd be great. After this, Tan, we'll have to link to some of the stuff that you have so people can go and have a little search around all the impact funds. I think that would be awesome.
There's an impact investing network, and then people can, because our big kaupapa is about educating the market, both investors and impact-led businesses. Then the Ākina has developed this, it was part of this partnership called the Impact Initiative. So it's got a whole host of resources about, when I talk about impact models and impact measurement and impact investment, it's like got practical tools that people can go to, like the social lean canvas, and how do you do your impact models and all those kinds of things as well. So just to get people started.
Nice. We're up to 33 minutes, so we probably need to start thinking about wrapping it up. Couple more things. Did either of you want to speak to, we've sometimes talked about the link between the kaupapa of PledgeMe being very much about its crowd and the kaupapa of impact investment, which is very much about serving community. Do you want to touch base on that at all, either of you?
I could say something what Anna's thinking, and I'll keep it brief because we're nearly about time. But before there was a term called impact investment, we talked about that, and now there is that. Where I see that things that haven't really changed is that when we go to do to see what impact is made. So it's usually who is benefiting from this, right? Who are the communities and the groups that are benefiting from this impact? And that's a real principle that when we go to assess or measure the impact of things. And if you think about it, it's like, well, the way that PledgeMe through its crowdfunding is that those people that are backing this organization, is that those are the people that are in touch with their community, and the community of that business. And I think in that way, that principle stays very much the same. So I think that's why I think that's the power of crowdfunding, isn't it? Because you're like, well, we are this group of people that understand this impact because we are in contact with our community. We know what impact looks like because we're the ones, that are really closely linked with it. Yeah.
And I think you said that earlier, Tan, like it's communities creating solutions to their own problems and being able to fund them and making it accessible. And I think that is something that we've seen happen through PledgeMe, communities where we think maybe they don't have enough money and it's going to be really hard for them to raise. And then they raise $2 million in 10 minutes. And it's like, actually, these communities want to solve problems and we'll make it happen. But that's not always the case. It's not always the case that communities that lack access to resources can raise the funds they need to solve their own problems. So, yeah.
It's giving them the tools, giving them the voice, giving them the funding to be able to do this. Yeah. And look, we're with as part of Ākina, our work is that that's a big principle of that what we do is we talk to corporates and government, and then they say, oh, this is what we're trying to do. It's like, well, have you asked your community? Have you asked your community if what you're trying to do is actually benefiting them, and what does that look like to them?
Yeah.
Right. So.
I think the hard thing is sometimes it's within communities. They may not have the same disposable income to be able to fund the things. So then you have to fund across communities. But to your point, how do you know that that's actually working? How are the people with the funds actually making sure that it's going in the right way into the communities that they want it to go into?
Yeah.
But good question,
right.
Charlotte. I'm thinking a lot about it, but we probably don't have much more time for it.
Yeah, we're probably running out of time now. And just to conclude, this month, May 2023, has been the PledgeMe month of impact. So we've really tried to celebrate impactful businesses this month. And now I'm wondering if, Anna, you'd be up for doing a small plug about our discount we're offering for people who sign up with us.
Yeah, so if you are thinking about doing a round yourself, raising investment, and would like to work with PledgeMe, we take people through a 6-session program to get them ready to launch an equity campaign called Crowdfunding You. And this month, we're giving a 10% discount. So if you sign up before the end of the month, it'll be 10% off the $4,000 fee. So get in touch if you're keen, and we can help you get ready to go.
Couple more days. So, love to hear from you. All right, we're going to wrap this up. As always, if you have any questions for the PledgeMe team, please message us through our site or through any social media, and please share this if you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Tan, and thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your experience in the impact investment space. So there's space now for you if you have any final comments you'd like to make before we sign off.
You want to go first, Anna?
You go.
It just makes me so happy to be able to connect with PledgeMe. Just been, it's definitely filled my cup, and knowing that there's organisations like PledgeMe, like people such as Anna and Charlotte, because we're all part of the solution here in terms of this impact economy and trying to create this positive change. So I'm just really glad to be here today. Thank you very much.
And I'm just going to say a huge thanks to Tan for being such a big supporter over the years, including this event right now. My phone is about to die, so I might drop out with no notice. So thanks so much, Charlotte, as well, for organizing. Cool talk.
All right, we're going to sign off. Bye, everyone.
Matua.